Well, it's so good to be back with you, Parkview. Thank you. How's your week? Good? Mine was crappy. I'm not even kidding. It's a tough week. My wife just finished her third of 3 surgeries this year. She's recovering well from all 3, but I'm not recovering from being a nurse. I'm not cut out for it. So pray for my bride as she recovers and puts up with me. That's not all that's going on. Our church is actually under a social media attack right now. And that's never any fun, because if you defend yourself, you look guilty. If you don't, you look guilty. So it's a lose-lose for us. And we've lost a little bit of momentum, so pray for our church in that. And then 9 days ago, my stepmother passed away, which is sad. My dad, they were married for 50 years the week she died. And I went over and said, "Hey, Dad, congratulations, you made it 50. He goes, 50 what? He's in the middle stages of Alzheimer's. And so with her passing, which actually will in some ways make things easier for him, but she left behind a dog that lost continence at about the same time she did. I signed up to take care of my dad. I did not sign up to take care of that dog. So pray for the dog. And then, as if we didn't have enough going on, we kept our 4 grandkids for a week. I'm exhausted. I love them, but I'm exhausted. And one of them was a teenager, so I saw a lot at the top of his head this week. This is my life. And some of you are looking at me going, yeah. If you let me tell you what I'm going through, you could take an hour, right? And so I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. And some of you are going, I do feel sorry for you because my life is better than that right now. Your turn's coming. Could be a week, could be a month, but you know it's true. And so if you're not going through something, don't feel guilty. What you're going through is your pain. And the thing about pain is it's always personal. It does no good to compare yours to someone else's because it's your pain. It's what you're going through. And the question that I want to deal with is a very curious passage. I'm going to talk about the weirdest day of Jesus' entire life. The question I want to answer is Jesus enough? To get you through what you're going through, is he enough? And I realize that there are some people at church today, and maybe you're at Homer Glen or New Lenox, and you just walked in and you're not even sure, what's this whole preaching on a screen thing? And this is all new to you. You are asking that question, is Jesus enough to get me through what I'm going through? Here's my answer. And I'm going to give you the answer, and then I'm going to tell you 4 stories that prove the answer. Here's the answer. Jesus is all you will ever need and more than we could ever expect. And in this one day of Jesus' life, there's 4 stories that are packed right alongside, and every one of them is weird. It was a day that he preached in parables. It's common for him to preach, but his entire sermon was parables. And it wasn't in a synagogue, it was in a boat. Because the synagogue couldn't hold everybody, and even the shore, everyone wanted a piece of Jesus. They kept pushing him back right to the water's edge. So instead of getting his Birkenstocks wet, he got in Peter's boat, 10, 15 yards offshore, and he preached. And we tell these, what we call them, they're stories, we call them parables. It's just a story with a hidden meaning. And you go, did you like the story? Love the story. Do you know what it means? No. You want to hear another one? Yeah. So 9 in a row. And at the end of the day, sun is setting. He says to the boys, start rowing. The boat they were in is about the size of this pop-out stage. So 12 guys, it's packed. And he points to the other side of the lake. It's not that far, 2, maybe 3 miles. You can see the hills from Capernaum on the other side of the lake, but it was a world away culturally. Because where they live is where the Jews lived. Kosher, oive. Where they lived, that's where the others lived. Those people. Do you have those people? I think most of us have those people. Those people that make us feel uncomfortable. Those people that we don't understand. Those people that we don't agree with. And so they're going to those people. And for the Jews, they went to great efforts to avoid those people. And Jesus is saying, start rowing, that's where we're going. And so they're uneasy right from the get. But in this lake, it's an interesting geological phenomenon. The lake sits 692 feet below sea level. And we call it the Sea of Galilee. It's a freshwater lake. And the reason that matters is all of the weather patterns come from the west in the Mediterranean. And when they hit that deep hole in the ground, it comes crashing down. So you can have a storm rise up immediately. It actually doesn't rise up, it comes down. So here's our first story. And the theme of the story is that Jesus calms the storms that overwhelm us. Here's the text, verse 36. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in a boat. There were also other boats with him, which they're going to soon find that was a mistake to try to follow Jesus this time. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. So you feeling me? You in the boat? You're going everywhere. You're a little bit seasick. The waves are splashing in. It's dark now. The wind is howling. And Jesus, you got to love this, was in the stern. For you landlubbers, that's the back of the boat, sleeping on a cushion. I respect everything about Jesus, including the way he sleeps. Personally, sleeping is one of my 3 spiritual gifts. Like it's got to be, as good as I am at it, it's got to be a spiritual gift. I don't think I couldn't be asleep in here. If I'm on a waterbed and it leaks, this is a leaky waterbed. Instead of leaking from below, it's leaking from above and you're tossed all about. Jesus is sawing logs in the back of the boat. And the disciples come and woke him up and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drowned?" You wake me up and ask me that question, the answer is no, I don't. Why did they wake Jesus up? Well, they're in a storm. And you might think, well, they woke him up so he could calm the storm. No. When he calms the storm, they go, what? They have no expectation of him to calm the storm. The only answer that I can come up with is they woke Jesus up to help bail out the boat. Holy cats. That's what we do, isn't it? We come to him in prayer. He is the Lord of the universe, the creator of the world, and we want him to bail out our boat. Fair enough, I suppose. We need help when we're in a storm, but we have a little imagination when it comes to Jesus. And then what I want you to see is that Jesus is all we will ever need and more than we will ever expect. And Jesus does something that frankly was a bit foolish. Verse 39, he got up, he's in a boat. The waves are rocking the boat. And you don't stand up in a rowboat, that's foolish. Unless, of course, you can walk on water. Then you just tuck and roll and get back in. But there he is. And then he does something really weird. Look, I have spoken to myself. I talk to myself sometimes. Anyone else? You do talk to yourself a lot. And it's weird. I talk to myself sometimes. Sometimes I talk to a dog. I've never talked to wind. I've never talked to waves. But Jesus starts talking to the winds and the waves. A little bit odd. What's really odd is they listen. And the translation here says, quiet, be still. I'm going to give you an alternative translation. I learned this from my mother. She said this to me a lot, and it's an accurate translation. Sit down and shut up. And they do. Talk about giving you the willies. Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. And his disciples, he said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Well, they were afraid of the storm a minute ago. Now they're afraid of him because they never expected that he could not just bail out the boat. He could calm the storm, command the waves. Do you still have no faith? Jesus, what kind of faith do you want me to have in you? I do believe in you, but I've never believed enough to believe who he actually is and what he could actually do in my life. They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him. They had been walking with Jesus for over a year. Still don't know who he is. I've been walking with Jesus for 4 decades. I still don't know who he is. He continues to exceed my expectations. I just want you to hear this. If you walk in here in the middle of a pretty crappy week or month or year, you just need to know he's all you will ever need. and he's more than you could ever expect. That's story number one. Story number two, here's the theme. Jesus comforts what enslaves us. So the storm is calm, the lake is like glass. They row gently to the other side of the lake. They're not comfortable over there. And if you've been there, you know there's a small shore, and then the cliffs go straight up the hill. It is a high hill. And in those cliffs, in those days, were tombs. That was a graveyard. And there was a weirdo living in the graveyard. Like, he lived in the graveyard. He was a demon-possessed man, not a couple demons, not a dozen. Thousands of demons were in this man. He got cray-cray. And he, this is really weird, he's buck naked. And he's also homicidal and suicidal. He's got cuts all over himself, nothing covering up the cuts. His hair, I imagine, was down past his shoulders, going every which way. Fingernails like claws of a bird, and he comes bearing down at Jesus. You could just imagine, they're getting out of the boat, they're weirded out a little bit anyway, and all of a sudden this crazy guy just starts going, ah! Running down the hill in a full moon, straight at him. And Peter's like, Jesus, get back in the boat. And Jesus is just standing there. Now, up on the hill were some guys watching a herd of pigs, huge herd of pigs. There were 2,000 pigs in that herd. And they're bored because it's the middle of the night, a little weirded out because they saw the storm, and then the storm caught, and they go, whoa, that was weird. But now they get a little entertainment. You don't get a lot of entertainment watching pigs in the middle of the night. So a little bit goes a long way. And here's these Jewish boys. They're going, what are they doing here, Jewish boys? Watch this. This will be hilarious. They know the demon. They know the demon is homicidal. They know the demon's coming after him, and they start watching. And the demon, sure enough, just like clockwork, are screaming down the hill at him. And he is going hard. You need to know this about the demon. Verse 4, no one was strong enough to subdue him. It says they put chains on this guy. He would just break the chains. Okay, that's freaky. So these boys are like, this is gonna be fun. A few Jewish boys get their clock cleaned by our local demon. But that's not what happened. He comes to a screeching halt, kneeling at Jesus' feet. And here's what the demon said to Jesus. What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? You probably never heard it read like that, because you've never heard it read properly. Here's what the Bible says. He shouted at the top of his voice, in God's name, don't torture me. Weird. And Jesus is standing there. And the guy is subdued in front of Jesus. And what's your name? My name is Legion. A legion was a section of the Roman army, 6,000 strong. 6,000 demons, 2,000 pigs. That's 3 demons per pig. No wonder they committed suicide. Okay, so here's the rule. A groan is as good as a laugh. You're welcome. This is actually where we get devil's ham. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. I'm just poking fun at it. So this guy... these piggards up there, they can't call them shepherds because they're pigs. So these piggards are up there going, what just happened? And then they hear this conversation. The demons say, don't send us out of the region, send us into the pigs. And, oh no, you didn't. Jesus is a Jew. You might be an animal lover. I get that. He's a Jew. They're pigs. What does he care? Say, yeah, go into the pigs. And the pigs run right down the hill into the lake and drowned. Now you got 2,000 full moons just bobbing in the lake. And these piggards are terrified. They're like minimum wage workers that have just lost the major cash crop of the entire region. They got to report to the boss. So they go into town, knock on the door. Hate to wake you up, sir, but they're gone. What do you mean they're gone? They ran into, what do you mean they ran into the lake? Well, this Jewish guy came over and commanded the demons. And when they get there, the man, I love this sentence. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. The disciples were afraid of the storm. And when Jesus calmed the storm, they were afraid of Jesus. The people of this town were afraid of the demon, and when Jesus cast out the demons, they were afraid of Jesus. You see a pattern developing here. And they're terrified of Jesus. And if you're not aligned with him, you should be too. We sometimes think that we can, add Jesus on as an appendage to our life, come to church on Sunday to live the rest of our lives the rest of the week as we wish. Don't be foolish. He is kind, but he's not to be trifled with. And if maybe you're watching online and you're investigating the whole Christianity thinking, should I add this in my life or not? If he's not Lord of all, he's not Lord at all. He will not force himself on you. But mark my words, when he comes to you, you have a choice. You can either bow or you can send him away. But you can't play games with him. And so they send him away. They say to Jesus, we're afraid of you. You don't belong here. Go away. And Jesus gets back in the boat. Now, the demoniac, he wants to go with Jesus. Wouldn't you? It's not just that he loves Jesus for what Jesus did for him, but what has he got back home? Like everyone's seen his scarred body. Everyone has made fun of him. They've tried to chain him. If you're an employer, so for all of you CEOs here, would you hire this guy in your company? Ladies, would you date him? Well, some of you are fixers. You would love to try that, but it's a fool's errand. This guy's got nothing in the city. And so he comes to Jesus, please, let me come with you. You might be stunned at what Jesus said. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he's had mercy on you. Go home. Your mom and dad want to know what's happened to you. Tell your neighbors what's happened to you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. The Decapolis is not his city. Deca, 10, polis, city. It was a league of 10 cities. Jesus said, just go home. He doesn't just go home. He goes to 10 cities. How did that happen? Well, I can't be sure, but my guess is he goes home, mom, dad, and they cry, and they have breakfast together, and they rejoice. And the next door neighbor say, hey, we heard this rumor. Yeah, here's our son. And he tells them the story. And then there was like a town meeting. The city council gathers. We got to tell us what happened. So he tells the city council. And then the Elks Club heard of it and said, hey, we need a guest speaker. Would you come? And pretty soon, city after city after city, one man with less than 3 hours of Bible college education evangelizes 10 cities. The first time Jesus comes to this region, they ask him to go away. He will be back in about a year. And that's when he fed 4,000, not 5,000, that was on the Jewish side. 4,000 on the Gentile side. Where did 4,000 people come to hear about Christ? From one guy. What you're going through may be the lowest pit that you've ever been in, but it can also be the highest platform that you ever stand on. If you just have the boldness to tell people what Jesus has done for you. That's story number 2. Story number 3, we're going to go back across the lake. It's breakfast time now. They go back across the lake. Here is the theme of story number 3. Jesus cleanses what isolates us. There's actually 2 stories, and they're sandwiched together. We're going to hear a story about a 12-year-old girl that dies, and Jesus raises from the dead. In the middle of the story is a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years. So this is a literary sandwich. They're intended to be seen together. The woman, how long was she bleeding? 12 years. How old was the little girl? 12 years. It's same. It's part of the same story. So when Jesus docks the boat, gets out, a man comes to him. Everybody knew this guy. His name is Jairus. He was the leader of the synagogue. So big fish in this small pond. He had been avoiding Jesus because the rabbis from Jerusalem had come up to their little burb investigating Jesus. He's making claims to be the Messiah. Do we really trust him? So Jairus has been nervous to go to Jesus for help, but his daughter keeps getting more and more ill, and now she's on her deathbed. It is urgent. And the crowd is pummeling Jesus. The crowd was as thick as a Cubs and a Sox game. I mean, it's just everywhere. And Jairus can get through the crowd because he's got clout. He can muscle his way through. Jesus, please, my daughter is sick. Come heal her. And he agrees. Let's go. In the middle of the parade to his house, there is an emaciated woman with a gynecological problem. This is awkward to talk about, isn't it? Like, why would you talk about a gynecological problem in the Bible? You'll see in a minute. This woman, after 12 years of bleeding, she's expended all of her financial resources and all of her physical. She is struggling every day. And it's not like she can keep it a secret. They didn't have disposable sanitary products back then. She would have to use cloth and rinse them out day after day. You know where she rinsed them out? At the edge of the lake, where all the fishermen are. That's where all the business is. Everybody knows her problem. And if you're a Jew, and you're bleeding, that renders you unclean. Not sinful, unclean. And for the time that you are bleeding, you are not to be intimate with your husband. Everything you touch becomes unclean. If you sit on a chair, it becomes unclean. If you lay in a bed, it's unclean. If you hold your children, they become unclean. So nobody wants to touch her, which is my guess how she got through this crowd, a thick crowd. But when she comes up, people are like, oh. And so she makes her way to Jesus. And she wants to touch the edge of his garment. It says in verse 28, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Specifically, the part of his clothes was the tzitzit. The tzitzit is a tassel that's on the edge of a prayer shawl. Most Jewish males were wearing these. Jesus, of course, would have one on. And each of these tassels had knots tied in it for all the prayers they prayed. So every time you prayed a prayer, like a rosary bead, you'd pray a prayer, touch the knot, pray another prayer, touch the knot, pray another prayer, touch the knot. And the superstition was, if a powerful rabbi prays through the knots, some of his spiritual pixie dust is left on the tassel. And she's thinking, if I could just grab it, I just need to touch it and let go, I'll be healed. Superstitious, perhaps, but it worked. And she grabs the tassel and lets go, and Jesus stops in his tracks and says, who touched me? And Peter's like, Lord, everybody's touching you, man. He said, no, somebody touched me with faith. And he turned around. It's not hard to find the woman in the crowd because she's like cowering, her eyes are big, her knees are knocking. And Jesus, instead of rejecting her, he said something to her he'd never said in all the Gospels to anyone else. Daughter. He calls her his daughter. And you might think it's kind of rude for him to out her like that. But he had to, because for 12 years, everyone believed she was unclean. She needs a public declaration of her cleanness to be accepted back in the arms of her husband, the children to come to her lap again, for her to attend synagogue again. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. And maybe you can relate to this woman. You feel like isolated. Maybe it's because of something you had done, or maybe it's because of something someone has done to you, but you feel like you're unclean. Could you hear him say today, you're my daughter. You're not unclean, you're my daughter. Go in peace, your faith has made you well. That's the third story. The fourth story, the theme is Jesus conquers what destroys us. And as we transition, this woman has stopped the parade going to Jairus' house. And you got to feel for Jairus. His daughter is on his deathbed, and yet Jesus is just taking all the time in the world for this woman. He stops, he turns, he talks to her. And while Jesus is speaking to the woman, some people come from Jairus' house. Here's what they say. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. Your daughter is dead, they said. More accurately, in the original language, the first word of the sentence is, dead, your daughter is. Why bother the teacher anymore? And you could just see him deflate. His world comes crashing down. And I wasn't there, so I can't prove this, but I think Jesus grabbed him by the shoulders and squared him up and said, look at me, just believe. And they go to the house. The mourners are already there. Decomposition sets in quickly when it's warm. And so the funeral people were on call. And they would actually hire, in their culture, they would hire mourners, particularly women, because they can wail like nobody's business. Now, they're not really sad. They're just professional wailers. They're wailing. And then they hired flute players because flutes in their ears were very sad. And if any of you have had a child try to learn the flute, you know why. But there they are. There's this hullabaloo going on. Woo! Maybe you've seen something like this on National Geographic. And Jesus comes in and says, stop. She's just asleep. And it was really weird. You should have been there. They go, woo! He doesn't even know when someone's dead. We know, look, they may be anxious. They know when someone's dead. They stop breathing. They get stiff. It's not that hard to figure out. They know she's dead. I mean, they laugh at Jesus for saying she's not dead. And so Jesus, all right, everybody out. Peter, James, John, you come with me. Jairus, Mrs. Jairus, you come with me. And they go into the room where this little girl is. She's an only child. She's 12 years old, only child. They're not going to have another child. This is critical for them. And he says to her, Talitha, it's a tender word for little girl, cum, rise. And she does. And as if this isn't interesting enough, he says to her, remember, she's a preteen. First thing he says to her is, give her something to eat. Because she's a teenager, she's always hungry. It's so humanizing. It's so real. Question, why did we pair these stories? Like, why did the Bible pair the story of a woman bleeding and a little girl who's dead? Both 12 years old, sandwiched in between, so clearly they would go together. What's the message here? Why do you talk about this awkward gynecological problem? Well, let me ask you a question. If you had one word to say, what's the woman's problem? What made this woman unclean? One word. The word is blood. Blood makes you unclean. Okay, what was the little girl's problem? One word. Death. When will you next read the words blood and death in the same story? It's when Jesus died on the cross. When you understand it's the blood and death that Jesus overcomes. This isn't just a miracle, this is a prophecy. This is a promise to you that his blood and his death will cover what you're going through. He's all that we will ever need and more than we will ever expect. And you might be asking, well, when am I going to get through this? I don't know the when, I do know the how. I do know the who, and if you do too, then he can get you through what you're going through. It's not what he will do for you someday. It is what he has already done for you at the cross. And that's why every week we celebrate communion together to remember that he is more. He's all we'll ever need and more than we could ever expect. Some of you are going through it. You don't have to go through it alone. And if you need Jesus with skin on, whatever campus you're on, New Lenox, Homer, Orland Park, whatever campus you're on, if you just go out to the Next Step Center, I promise you, there are people there who are prepared to pray for you. It may not solve the problem you're going through, but it'll help you get through it because you don't have to go through it alone. We're here for you. And if right now you don't have anything that you feel like you need to pray with someone about, would you join us as a church on Monday for 21 days of prayer? And on your way out, make sure you pick up that guide because a praying church is a powerful church. And God has something uniquely in store for our church. We are on the precipice of some of the most exciting days after 75 years of history. And there will be people 25 years from now, 50 years from now saying, remember when? And these are the days they'll point to. Holy Father, would you bless our church? Would you hear our prayers? And for those who are going through the valley of the shadow of death, would you breathe life into them today through the blood and through the death of Jesus? That as we consume him, he exceeds our expectations. So that like that ex-demoniac, we can't help but tell the story of what Jesus has done for us and for our families and for our communities. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.